Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Yvette Moy, and I'm the University of Washington's Director of Public Lectures, and I'm here to welcome you this evening. Tonight, we will host author and poet Alexis Pauline Gumbs. That's right, you can snap. That's what we're here to do. Alexis will be introduced by the University of Washington's Dr. Wendy Barrington, who holds joint appointments in the School of Nursing and Public Health. And before we bring Wendy up on the stage, we have a few housekeeping items to work through, and we're going to start with thank yous. To bring tonight's speaker to campus, we worked with a lot of departments, including the School of Nursing, the School of Public Health, the Department of Anthropology, the Center for Anti-Racism and Community Health, as well as Elliott Bay Books, who is here selling books this evening. So if you'd like to grab a copy, and Alexis will be signing immediately afterwards on this side of the auditorium. I also want to thank the Office of Public Lectures Assistant Director, Kate Golden. She really keeps the wheels from falling off of this whole OPL process. So I'm incredibly grateful for all of the work that she does. We have a few housekeeping items to get through, so if you haven't done so already, if you wouldn't mind, please silencing or turning off your cellular phones. We ask that you refrain from taking any video or audio recordings of this evening's lecture. We are live streaming it this evening, and it is being recorded and will be available on the Office of Public Lectures YouTube channel. And we also ask that you refrain from taking photographs while our speaker is on stage tonight. This evening, there are two ways that you can pose questions. For those of you who are in the audience and feeling brave, you can come to the microphone in the room and ask a question, provided you ask it in the form of a question. And for those of you who might be feeling a little shy, or for those of you who are live streaming with us this evening, you can send your question in via Slido. And there's a QR code that's right here. You can scan it with your phone, and you can send your question in, and we'll get to it. And I think that's pretty much all for my announcements. And as we welcome Dr. Wendy Barrington to the stage, I'm going to ask you to take a moment to introduce yourself to the people sitting around you this evening and say hello, make a new friend.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so very much for coming out this evening. I am so excited to be here. I am Wendy Barrington. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm honored to serve as the inaugural director for the Center for Anti-Racism and Community Health, or ARCH. It's a center, thank you. It's a center within the School of Public Health, but a center that reaches across disciplines and communities to fuel community-driven health equity action. We know that justice work is perpetual, that justice is not a destination, but a movement to always advance reparations, equity, and new futures in which we are all free. And all grounded by a deep love of the land and all of the divine things, both animate and inanimate, that call it home. I was first introduced to Alexis Pauline Gumbs' work by my daughter, who gifted me a copy of Undrowned: Black Feminist Lessons from Marine Mammals. It is prose that reads like a prayer and is such a gift, especially in these times. And so I am so incredibly honored to introduce Alexis to you all. Alexis Pauline Gumbs is a queer Black feminist love evangelist and an inspirational cousin to all life. She, they are the author of several transformative books, including the award-winning Undrowned, as well as Survival is a Promise, The Eternal Life of Audre Lorde. As the co-founder of the Mobile Homecoming Trust, Dr. Gumbs helps steward an intergenerational, experiential living library celebrating Black LGBTQ brilliance. Please welcome tonight's guest, Alexis Pauline Gumbs, to the stage.
I'm so happy to be with you all. Thank you. Really honored and grateful for all the labor that allowed this to happen. We're here. So, would you join me in taking 3 breaths? Would you? Okay. I'm like, I feel like they have to breathe anyway, but consent is very important. So I'm, for our next 3 breaths, just gonna say inhaling when I'm inhaling and exhaling when I'm exhaling. Just encourage you to do what supports your breathing. Maybe stretching like I'm stretching. Maybe putting down what you're holding, grounding your feet into the ground, whatever feels right for you. Okay, here we go. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. One more time, inhaling. Maybe super loud exhale. Beautiful. Thank you for your breathing. I'm dedicating my participation here tonight to my grandma, Lydia May Gibbs, then Gumbs, and she was an incredible artist. She was the first artist that I knew. She designed and made me my own dollhouse and many of my Halloween costumes, and really tried to teach me how to embroider. Didn't go well. But she also designed the revolutionary flag of Anguilla, and she showed me that actually making your vision material is one of the most revolutionary things we can do. So I'm grateful to be her granddaughter, and I'm grateful to be able to say her name to you. I want to ask you to say the name of someone who's not physically in the space with us, not tuning in via live stream that you know of, but who is part of the reason that you're here. Maybe someone who's especially on your heart, especially on your mind, has especially impacted you. And they could be someone who is older than you or younger than you or the same age as you, someone who's living now or someone who lived before. And they can be someone of any species. And since, thanks to Yvette, you know your neighbors, please turn to one of your neighbors now and tell them who you're dedicating to. Go. About 30 more seconds with your neighbor. Okay, please say thank you to your neighbor. Thank you for listening to each other. Thank you for sharing your folks. All of those folks are now welcome here as well. Okay. Let's see if this works. There she is. not my grandma, sorry, but Alma Thomas. Equally beautiful. Alma Woodsy Thomas, first graduate of Howard University in fine art, founder of the first art gallery for students in the public schools of Washington, D.C., first Black woman to have a solo show at the Whitney Museum, and oldest sister of 3 girls, is best known today for her bright earth paintings of plants in motion. I'm gonna skip through a bunch of ones so you can see one. Oh, there's one. That's one of the space ones, though. They're so beautiful. Stunning views of fields of flowers as if someone who loves color is zooming by above. Born in 1891, before the invention of the airplane, she eventually made space paintings inspired by televised views of our solar system, another view of the heavens. When Alma was a child, before she and her family left the land of Georgia clay and mob rule for the increased opportunities of Washington, D.C., one of her younger sisters, Fanny, died of diphtheria, a disease of fluids transmitted through droplets holding bacteria. Today, diphtheria is rare in the United States because of vaccination, but when Alma Thomas was growing up, the transmission of these particular bacteria through a sneeze or a cough or from a surface could be deadly for a child. More deadly for Black children, whom a racist healthcare system routinely denied hospital care. When Fanny, a little girl named after her grandmother, died, the entire family must have been devastated. Maybe as the oldest sister, Alma felt she had been granted custody of Fanny's soul, an assignment to remember her well, a continuing connection. Grief often also moves through the release of fluid substances, tears, snot, the vapor of ragged breathing. Or maybe if you are an artist, you create a ritual. Maybe you would use earth to make a replica of your little sister in her Sunday best, bow in her hair, a knowing smile. Maybe you would shape the clay with your hands, glaze her carefully, and keep her beside you. Alma Thomas slept and dreamt next to a ceramic bust she made of her sister Fanny throughout her entire adult life. Maybe sister is a job that simply does not end with death. Once upon a time, H.E. Mahal asked 4 Black artists, including Alma Thomas, for their, quote, approaches to inhumanity. The idea was to see whether the work of Black artists could address in some way what the Scottish poet Robert Burns called man's inhumanity to man. What survives is Alma's deflection of the terms of the interview. Through color, I have sought to focus on beauty and happiness rather than on man's inhumanity to man. She recentered her energy, clarified her focus, beauty, happiness. The full interview has all but disappeared, but the quotation appears almost everywhere Thomas's work is displayed or discussed, almost as if to give permission to a predominantly white set of viewers or institutions to enjoy her vibrant use of color without thinking about color's cruel calculus in a racist world. So what beauty? Whose happiness? The question of who the primary audience is for Thomas's work, including both the paintings as artifacts and the process of life, of a life of practice, could shed light on her primary aims. Regina A. Perry, one of the first African-American women to attain a PhD in art history, did not include that ubiquitous quote in the profile on Thomas's work for her catalog, Free Within Ourselves, African-American Artists in the collection of the National Museum of American Art. Perry, who was also the first African-American person to serve as a guest curator at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, begins her section on Alma Thomas with a quote that includes these words: "Light is the mother of color. Light reveals to us the spirit and living soul of the world through colors. The spirit and living soul already exist. And then comes the birth of color at the speed of sun. I am here for the revelation." That last part is me. I am here for the revelation. Sorry, you can't see my quotation marks, but I can. Okay. In 2022, the noted lesbian feminist photographer Joan E. Byron mentioned that I should see the new Alma Thomas retrospective, Everything is Beautiful, while it was on view at the Phillips Collection in Thomas's hometown of Washington, D.C. But I missed it. When I learned that the exhibit was showing at the Frist Art Museum in Nashville, where I went a few months later to honor the retirement of crucial Black feminist, theorist, and teacher Hortense Spillers, I knew I couldn't miss it again. My partner and I would spend a morning there, I thought. But when I saw the scale of the paintings, the depth of the research, the philosophical wonder of Alma's view of the world, not to mention the replicas of her fabulous outfits and her brightly appointed living room, I knew that I would need to spend more time listening to what her work was teaching me. I couldn't stop wondering what it meant for a Black woman born in 1891 near Columbus, Georgia, at a time when color was used to enforce a deadly racial code, to become the greatest color theorist in the world. That wasn't the lesson of a morning to be mulled over lunch. It seems a lesson for many lifetimes. So I never left. I created a ritual. I bought the catalog at the Everything is Beautiful exhibit in Nashville, and then I went home and ordered all of the materials I could find by and about Alma Thomas, including a calendar. And then for the 365 days of a full calendar year, I started every morning, first light, looking either at an image of an Alma Thomas painting, an archival photograph, a study, or a sketch. And I'm happy to share with all of you who live so far away from Washington, D.C., that Alma Thomas's archival papers, organized and preserved by her sister Maurice, are fully digitized and available on the website of the Smithsonian Archives of American Art. Check them out later. Or now, I mean, really. Prompted by the paintings and these artifacts, every day I wrote poetry that startled and astounded me. It wasn't until I'd written for a whole year that I finally read back over what I had been writing. And I still don't know what it is. A partial index of my childhood associations with color, a testimony to the taste of being in love, a listening space for Alma to whisper her dreams into the present, a psychedelic record of a year where nothing made sense, and yet life shone so brightly, I wanted to remember it. And what if Alma Thomas's primary audience is a Black girl who did not make it? Fanny means the free one. What are all the free versions of us left back in the dirt of our becoming? What can they teach us? Okay, so this is an excerpt from that book, which is called Primary. And I want to go back to, there's no spoilers, but yeah, I think I want to go here. At the end of her life, fabric. At the end of her life, Alma Thomas insisted, people always want to cite me for my color paintings, but I would much rather be remembered for having laid a foundation for children's lives. In 1935, at the age of 43, during a summer off from teaching art at Shaw Junior High School in segregated Washington, D.C., Alma Thomas took an intensive course with Tony Sarg, often called the father of American puppetry in New York City. He's the guy who did the first big puppets for the Macy's Day Parade. The class entailed 100 hours of instruction in every phase of the marionette theater. A year before, in her master's thesis in arts education from Columbia University's Teachers College, Alma had argued that the creation of a marionette theater, maybe we show, oh yeah, like that one. Those are her students. The creation of a marionette theater could bring together multiple educational subjects for her students. It could also offer a beautiful way to bring her earlier work as a costume designer for the Howard University drama troupe into her creative educational practice. The students, Alma reasoned, would learn history while researching the characters, learn design and color theory while creating the costumes, learn shop while building and lighting the stage, learn physics from lifting the puppets into the air, learn writing while crafting the dialogue, learn drama while acting out the plays, and learn civic responsibility while reaching out to the community to attend their shows. And what did they learn? While creating small people from fabric and stuffing, stringing them up from a wooden platform they had built. They learned how to animate life on their own terms. They say that by the time Alma Thomas retired from teaching at Shaw Junior High School in 1960, at least half of DC's Black community had been her students. There's a power in being first, even more power in lasting. What does it mean that in the land of the political puppets, a woman born in Georgia, at the high water mark of US mob lynchings, taught her students to saw the wood, connect the strings, bring joy and laughter to their families and communities by giving life to hanging dolls year after year? Could I learn that? 2, wood. Rose Hill, Georgia, 1891. Every breath a prayer. Alma's mother, Amelia Thomas, was shaking. Would that she could be as rooted as poplar, but she had to be ready to run. Big with her first child, she prayed that the men with dogs and ropes would pass by, disperse, give up, go away. Eventually, the Georgia trees received her anxious prayers, breathed in her carbon dioxide pleas, and used them to whisper their own wonderings. What tree would the mob choose next? Which of their limbs would be desecrated by the cruel white supremacist enforcement of man's inhumanity to man? Amelia survived that night in Rose Hill, but when she gave her soul to light, birthed Alma, her first child, and sang to soothe her brown baby's dreams, she noticed that her daughter was born hard of hearing. Her fear, Amelia believed, transmitted through amniotic fluid and blocked her baby's listening ears. Even before she was born, Alma had heard too much. Alma Thomas left Georgia with her family as a child because there were no high schools that would admit a colored girl. And since her mama, Amelia, already knew the sound of the Atlanta race riots, which broke out on Alma's 15th birthday, she said no more to white men once again roaming with dogs and weapons, seeking whatever lost part of their souls they had bartered to whiteness. Take off your shoes and shake all that Georgia sand out of them and don't look back, she told her daughters when they reached Washington, D.C. But Alma did look back. The trees were still beckoning, and the land held more than memories of segregation and racial terror. It also held the short life of Alma's younger sister, Fanny, who died of diphtheria in the early 1900s at 10 years old. Maybe that's why Alma never stopped painting those flower beds of Rose Hill, those elder poplar trees. 3, paint. We know that Alma Thomas's, I love the blurry one the best, Alma Thomas's commitment to her students' education, a level of education Fanny didn't live to participate in, was profound. She not only taught them during the week, she also organized after-school and Saturday trips to museums, and a beauty club based on the philosophy that they would need to learn to see beauty in their own community, in themselves. Therefore, I think Alma Thomas thought about the necks of her students as she taught them to hold their heads up higher. I believe that as she taught them to stuff and stitch marionettes together, she hoped that they would learn what they were made of and what they could create. This is the woman who said of her largest painting, red azaleas singing and dancing to rock and roll music, "Do you see that painting? Look at it move. That's energy, and I'm the one who put it there. I transform energy with these old limbs of mine." 4, strings. But what is the relationship between a puppet and a Black child in the early 20th century, or a puppet and a Black grown woman in the early 21st century, for that matter? I kept looking at the materials listed in the caption for an image of a marionette Thomas made. Fabric, wood, paint, and strings. What am I made of? I wondered. And so for the summer of my year of Alma Thomas, the first hour of my day, eventually approximately 100 hours total, I wrote a series of poems where the title is that caption. I looked at the educational encounters in my own life, broadly speaking, because isn't birth an education? Isn't being my father's daughter or my sister's sister an educational experience? And I asked myself a series of questions. What is the fabric? What is the wood? What is the paint? What are the strings? I surrendered to the possibility that I might learn about a variety of subjects if I asked these questions again and again all summer. Here's one. Wait, let's look at more things. This is, I think you can see one of the puppets there. Okay. Fabric, wood, paint, and strings, Our Savior Lutheran circa 1992. Pleated tunic, corner computer, Marvel mutants, failing names, sharp nails, ready knuckles, Oregon Trail, tetherball twine, fire, glasses, smarts, the only one. When my family moved to South Florida in 1992, it wasn't to escape racism. In fact, in order to be closer to my mother's family after my parents got divorced, we moved to a town called Plantation. That's what I said. Was this name an accurate marker of what the land had been, or a nostalgic predictor of what white people moving to newly developed apartment complexes and subdivisions might have longed for? I still don't know. If we had stayed in New Jersey, I would have started middle school. But in Broward County, I still had one more year of elementary school to go. And so my sister and I both went to Our Savior Lutheran, a small school attached to a church we did not attend, where we had to wear navy blue tunics and penny loafers. I was the only Black girl in my grade. My sister and I may have been the only Black girls in the whole school. I know y'all live in Seattle, so somebody here can relate to that. I remember playing Foursquare and tetherball and hanging upside down from the monkey bars and the colorful shorts I learned to conceal under my uniform. I remember that the X-Men were popular, but I don't think my classmates liked them for the reasons I liked them. I thought I must be made of something entirely different from my peers, and that I needed to craft what I had into a set of superpowers that could shield me from the sharp words and messy jokes of fifth graders. Fabric, wood, paint, and strings. Mangum Street, 2005. Repetition, sitting on the floor, toner, emails, the words of the Black women writer deities, the hours before usual, new sun, devotion, paper, always paper, then thicker paper, pressed black ink, my hands. And I did create a set of superpowers, or at least I thought they were superpowers, to keep myself safe in the tokenization I navigated from my earliest education right through graduate school. But by the time I moved to Durham, North Carolina to get a PhD in English at Duke in 2004, I felt like I might be outgrowing my shield. And it was the trees, or at least my relationship to paper, that helped me find ways to be present that, if not always safe, were accompanied. The accompaniment of ancestors, the technologies of finding other Black feminists, the feeling of contributing to a multi-generational community. I woke up early and created a Black feminist heaven and used paper to invite other people into it. I thought of myself as practicing in the tradition of post-emancipation Black school teachers. I imagined myself in communion with Black women who offered their creativity to generations of learning. I did not know the name Alma Thomas, yet. Fabric, wood, paint, and strings, Overlook Hospital, 1982, for Pauline Mackenzie. That's my mama. Breath, coral, salt water, sinew. Death, mineral, blood, continue. Eyelash, cheekbone, pressure, that full head of hair. What is the fabric? What is the wood? What is the paint? What are the strings? Maybe this is what Alma Thomas called transforming energy. Returning to the scene of my own birth, a C-section in which doctors cut cords prematurely, I can reimagine the materiality of my connection to my mother and to the universe. Questioning what I am made of, I can question what we make and remake collectively. I can make space to notice and to grieve what it means that even before I was learning to be a student or a teacher, institutions averse to Black life were trying to tell me how and when to be born. Threatened by the time my mother needed to bring me here, they were already disciplining the through line. My mother says that when I was born, I had a cone head, shaped by the tools that brought me out instead of the shape of moving through her. And though I am shaped, quite literally, by all of that interference, I am not made of it. My geography is oceanic and unlimited. My beauty school is the abundant, wet presence of life. I wrote dozens of these fabric, wood, paint, strings, stanzas, and I encourage you to write some too. It can be like a 4-line biography. What's the fabric? What's the wood? What's the paint? What are the strings? I think you might learn something about what you are made of and what you can make. The biggest result of re-examining my education is realizing that there are more subjects for me to study than I can ever name. In fact, the basic questions of puppet formation give me the opportunity to learn something more than the logic of being subject to power. What happens when I take responsibility? When I say, see that energy, I'm the one who put it there. These are my materials. The visionary thinker and activist Grace Lee Boggs theorized that in addition to revolutionaries, we need solutionaries. People dedicated to finding solutions to the complex problems that face us as an interconnected mass of life. At the Allied Media Conference, this slideshow is random. You've probably figured that out now. Okay. At the Allied Media Conference in Detroit, Michigan in 2007, I listened to Boggs say that if our educational systems were just that, intergenerational spaces where we figured out how to solve the problems of water supply, of how to care for one another, of sustainable food systems, we would learn all the math, all the critical thinking, all the history, all the creative writing, all the biology we need at the same time. And what stage have you built? And what story are you acting out? And whom have you conscripted into your drama, tying their hands and feet? If only we could let our need lead our learning instead of reproducing what we think already exists. Alma Thomas knew this, and in her marionette practice, she was a teacher of all topics. But most importantly, she offered the practice of supporting bodies and creating new stages. She gave children opportunities to play with connection and light. She asked them to invite the whole community into a story that needed telling, an alternate system created by and for Black children, a respectful use of rope and trees, the pedagogy of a worthy prayer. I think I'm just going to read you 2 more poems. They're the long ones where I tried to tell my whole life story with fabric, paint, and strings. Oh, we're back to this one. Fabric, wood, paint, and strings, or material elements of some years of the artist's life. Matted hair my grandmothers pulled out in their sleep. Trees that held their backs. Well-mixed watercolor tea. Whale intestine. White paper I waxed and blackened with every crayon in the box. Popsicle sticks I collected the slow way. The blue of candied teeth, fraying frizzy yarn, flannel, clarinet reed, hypercolor, spiral plugged-in phone. Day planner covers, stacked soles of platform shoes, newspaper ink, flat iron cord. Jeans I wore until they fell apart, floors of dorm room nights, printer acrylic t-shirt transfers, ropes that lift windows. Glued spines of books, reclaimed church fan handles, blood, cheese, photocopied poems, Cheryl's picture frame, markers staining fingers, yard grass, letters of invitation, well-maintained forest trails, likes, luggage tags, boarding passes, tea stirrers, honey, the word yes, blanket sweatpants, houseplant stems, spice mix, mask loops. Most of the fabric is paper. Most of the wood is actually wood. Most of the paint is edible. Most of the string is still here. Last one, fabric, wood, paint, and strings, or material elements of some years of the artist's life. 2. Amniotic water, bone of daughter, skin of call, navel string. Mother's kisses, hair and nails, father's heat, bassinet mobile. Paradigm of play, side screen door, sugared milk, Velcro straps. Test scores, leaves, stickers, friendship bracelet lanyards, pleated uniform blue, monkey bar legs, sweat, the word only. The written word, after-school activity, nail polish, a ride home. Quotes printed on the wall, fall, spring, cranberry juice, and blackness. Generations, meetings, blog posts, use. Brilliance, podium, publishing, the word wow. My love, where we live, vegan chicken broth, asking. The fabric is validation. The wood is what I lean on. The paint is not sustainable. The strings are what I need. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Alexis. And now we'd like to invite you to come up. If you have a question, please come up to the mic and ask it. We also are taking questions through the Slido. So if you have a question and want to put it by the QR code that we showed earlier, please do so.
That one.
Yes.
Stretch again.
Thank you. It may take me a moment to ask this. It's like the wisdom of poetry. It's like a shot of liquor, it's like hard. I'm on the precipice of taking care of myself for maybe the first time in my life.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm thinking about the beginning of your lecture and this like beautiful, the words of Alma Thomas and energy and light. And I'm also thinking about the emphasis and really like how you framed your whole process on ritual. And I'm someone who has struggled my entire life to embrace ritual. So I'm wondering, and maybe this is a question that could have relevance for everybody in the audience, not just me, but like I feel like your wisdom distilled through Alma Thomas, what would be one piece of advice you could give people for moving away from this like inhumanity towards humanity into this beauty and light ritual attempt in their lives? Like, what would you say they could do to foster that?
Great question. I think that there's something really necessary and powerful about someone with Alma Thomas's life circumstances saying, I'm actually reclaiming my energy for the most beautiful possible purpose. And honestly, I think it's something that people are still trying to learn to read and interpret. She has been called an apolitical artist. And part of my motivation in this book and my sermon on this tour is really about, like, how could it be possible for someone who devoted her life to the creativity of Black children in a segregated school system to be considered apolitical in her creative process. But I think it's because we still don't know how to take responsibility for beauty as it comes through us. And so Alma Thomas created the Beauty Club, right? She was like, these children are gonna have access to beauty every second of their lives, and they can actually decide that. And that doesn't mean they don't have a critique. Their vision of beauty might be very much based on their critique, right? So I think that, Alma Thomas made her art studio out of her kitchen, and she studied the light that came in her window in the house that she had grown up in. Since they moved to DC, that's the only house that she lived in. And I think that okay, so when you say there's like a resistance to ritual, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have that because I'm a ritualistic person raised by some ritualistic people. So I'll just say this is something we do not have in common. But yeah. What I noticed is that we can think that we're evading ritual, but we're not. Because there's all sorts of repetition, right? This lecture repeats. People come here, they stand here, they do this. That makes it a ritual. Scientific method as it's practiced in the Western Academy is a ritual, right? It's based on repetition. You do the same things again, 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 right? And our systems of oppression are actually held together by repetition. Not what happens once and seems exceptional, but what happens again and again and again, right? Mm-hmm. So part of Alma Thomas's power that really resonates with me and that I felt that I activated in my repetition of engagement with her in a very specific way is what happens when we decide certain things are going to repeat. When we decide this is something that is going to be every day or every week or every season, that's what ritual actually is. It's not removed from our materiality. It's actually, what the water's doing to the shoreline. So I would invite you to notice that, but also then now that you are taking care of yourself for the first time, and I imagine that means you are more aware of the decisions that you get to make about your days and your weeks and your months and your seasons, that you think about and it can be experimental, right? What would you want to repeat? And you might try repeating it and be like, I do not want to repeat that. Or, oh, that's not an every day, that's an every 3 months, Yeah. But I think that it's a beautiful experiment to be in, and it really does have an impact. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we do have some questions online, and one that I wanted to pick out and start off with, because it also kind of pinged with me, how do you find your inspiration? What is it about Alma Thomas that spoke to you and called you to tell her story? And the question online was, how often do you tell other people about Alma Thomas, and how often do people know her? And what do you do or say or feel when they don't know her?
What a great question. Yeah, constantly. Now I'm like, Alma Thomas, right? Ray's like, I'm like, Alma Thomas. Okay, she was born in 1891. Now that I know, everybody's got to know, it's giving born again. So but I am a Black feminist love evangelist, so I evangelize the existence of these amazing beings. So yeah, I constantly am telling people about Alma Thomas. Some people know who Alma Thomas is. I would say the highest concentration of people who know who Alma Thomas is so far that I've spoken to are other educators, especially educators who practice what Alma Thomas was talking about in her thesis and now call it an arts integrative approach. And so I think that's really great that there are people who admire Alma Thomas who are in that practice. Is a beautiful thing to know. A lot of people don't know who Alma Thomas is. Some people, like me before 2022, have seen Alma Thomas's paintings but not understood this is painted by somebody born in 1891 outside of Columbus, Georgia at the height of lynching, right? And so I feel, and this is after years of practice with, me always talking about Black women, and a lot of times people not knowing who I'm talking about. I used to feel a lot of grief because I want everybody to know. And Alma Thomas should be taught in every school. But now I've decided, since that's my energy, and I put it there, that it is a really great honor to be the first person to explain to somebody that there once upon a time and forever is such a person as Alma Thomas. And I know what it means that I learned that. You know, I know how transformative it's been in my life already just in the 4 years since I've known that. And so I feel really excited. I feel like my my neurodivergence goes on full blast because I'm like, Alma Thomas, 1891, and then like who knows how much time goes past, and the people are like, cool, check her out, you know. But that's one of the things that I love about myself is that I am a very enthusiastic sharer of the good news.
Hello, my name is Bree, and I'm actually from DC, and have never heard of Alma Thomas, so thank you so much for introducing her. And I'm definitely going to dig in deeper. Like, I'm going home later this month. So my question is about your, I guess, the relationship to place that you have explored or maybe thought about in this process of studying her, because you said that you moved from New Jersey to Florida. Is that true? And she, Alma Thomas, like sort of did a reverse of like moving from Georgia to DC. And my family sort of has a similar history. And so, yeah, what if any influence did like a migration have on your like study of her and like the work that came out of what you did with your study?
Oh, what a beautiful question, Bree. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I got to be the person to introduce you to Alma Thomas. And if you want, you can go to her house, and there's like a beautiful plaque, and you can see that window that she studied the light from within. If you want to make that pilgrimage. Yes, I do think so. I do think that moving, migration, and I think especially being the oldest sister moving, I realized in this study like how much that has shaped how I actually exist, and what a powerful, and maybe similar to the role of being the first person to tell somebody about Alma Thomas, right? To be, I talk about Alma Thomas's multiple firstnesses. And of course, we can be very proud of Alma Thomas for that, but also there's something about being first, something about being unrecognizable in your context, something about being the way that I took it on, the person who like gets the rest of the space ready, wanting it to be easier for my siblings behind me to be in that space. Every school we went to, I felt that way about that. And it wasn't something that was conscious, it was just something that is so much a part of who I am, and now even how I relate to community or how I think about my intergenerational role, that I really got to look at differently in the process of working with Alma Thomas's life and work. So yes, I think that, Alma Thomas, they moved to DC. DC very much became home. She died in the hospital at Howard University, and I honestly think that's as she would have wanted it. She loved Howard so much. But there was this way where, as I say here, her mother said, "Don't look back," but she was painting those flower beds when she was like 74 years old, and she was holding that memory, and she was, as far as the art historians and the Alma Thomas art critical scholars that I have studied know, that ceramic that she made of her sister is like her first artwork that she made. And I think about what it means to leave a particular set of land and then to make something tangible like that out of clay, to hold on to. So yeah, I think, I know that moving multiple times as I did, and then finding this place called Durham, North Carolina, that I was like, oh, I didn't think I would have a forever home. And now I'm like in love with Durham, North Carolina for 21 years, which is the longest I've lived anywhere. And I still don't know all of what that means. But anyway, short answer, yes. And I could talk about it all day. Thank you for asking that, Bree.
Hi, I'm an art teacher, and so while you were talking, I was thinking a lot about my kiddos, and I was curious if, like, baby you had encountered Alma's work, or perhaps a particular work that you feel really connected to. What do you think that experience would have been like for baby you?
What a great time travel assignment. Yeah, it would have been really great to know about the work of Alma Thomas when I was a baby me. I alluded to it, but yeah, I really wanted to, like, I was really trying to create a color out of the Crayola box that wasn't in it. And so I just tried to use all the colors, and it was this, I don't know, I was going for this really like dark, stormy purple that resonated with me. I think that as someone who only now is thinking about what all my associations of color were and may have meant in terms of like this array of colors, and this is part of what happened in these 365 days. It was like, oh, that color takes me to this memory and to this memory. I felt like I really was visiting baby Alexis and preteen Alexis and teen Alexis and all the ages of myself, and looking not only at what can I see from here about then, but also, like you're asking, what are the versions of myself that actually didn't make it, you know, that didn't actually continue or fit, you know? So I think that probably the most valuable thing to me about knowing about Alma Thomas would be if I also knew that she was a big sister. I think that was a really important part of her magic. And I think, you know, her sister Maurice, who created her archive and who is really the reason that we're able to know about her in the way that we do, was celebrating what that meant, you know, to have that as your older sister. And then these other color field artists of all different backgrounds in DC, they thought about Alma Thomas in that way. She was that person who was making more space, and that's something that I'm still thinking about and that I write about a lot in this book. Like, what is the difference between the care work of mothering and the care work of older sistering? You know, if you've experienced the difference, it's a significant difference. But in terms of a creative process, what does that make possible? There's like an alongsideness, and there's a lot of play, and there's, you know, secret languages and all sorts of things that are there. So yeah, I think maybe if there had been a way to learn relation. But I wonder how you talk about that with little kids, of color and difference. You know, I don't think I had any language, and I don't know what language could have been offered to me other than space to be myself, to make sense of, like, what is it to be the only Black kid here? You know, what does it mean to want to belong and to one of my art teachers, when my mom gave me all my box of evaluations and grades and things from school that she had been saving and holding on to as a wonderful archivist herself. My kindergarten art teacher talked about this portrait that I made of my mother, and she talked about the fact that I paid so much attention and spent so much time to get the texture of my mother's hair the way I needed it to be, you know? And I appreciate that I actually did have an art teacher who noticed that and felt that was important to communicate to my mom, you know? So, yeah, I think there's a million versions of that, but I'm excited about the care that you're showing to your students.
So we'll have a couple more questions, one from online. I was struck by your refrain, fabric, wood, paint, strings. Has thinking about your life through these objects helped reframe inanimacy or objecthood? At all?
At all. Yeah, it has. I mean, I think that it's what animates these things, or what is it to try to write about my life and really stick to the material, like these materials, these popsicle sticks, these, you know, all of this. It's given me space to, like, some space between the story of myself as someone acted on, especially as a child, with not very much decision-making power, to be like, well, if I was choosing where we moved, would I have chose to move to Plantation? I don't know, but I didn't get to choose because that's where they took us and that's where we lived, you know. Or what it was to be in the particular educational environments that I was in, a story where those are all things that happened to me. And it gave me space to be inside a story of I was present in relationship to other materials, and I was an animated presence there. There are these infinite meanings, like what can't a popsicle stick mean, you know? And it gave me space inside stories of my own survival that have been overdetermined to be curious differently. And to wonder, okay, so then what are the other possibilities of what it could have been to be surrounded by popsicle sticks and Fun Dip or whatever it is that I was surrounded by. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a deep question, you know, but thank you, and I'll keep thinking about that.
Thank you. And we have time for one more question.
Hi. Thank you for teaching all of us how to be such good students. I was really struck by what you said about coming out as a conehead and being shaped by cruelty but not made of it. Can you tell us a bit about how you hold on to that truth, either about yourself or about other people, even when it's hard, whether it's because you're learning even more about the violence of the past or the violence of the present? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a powerful question. Yeah. Shaped by cruelty, but not made of it. It is a meditation, you know? It's not always my default perception of myself or of other people. And I think the thing that has been most generative in that practice actually has been my ancestral study, and learning more about my ancestors, wondering more about my ancestors, trying to do, I mean, some of the writing I'm doing now is about that materiality. Like when I try to think about ancestors multiple generations back who I didn't know, and I think about something they might have wanted, and then I have to do all this research, like literally, if you wanted to varnish a boat, but it's like 1830, and you are a free black person who's like shuttling enslaved people to freedom, which is the reality of my ancestor. What would you have to do? How would you get the varnish? How would you, that's how I learned about spirit varnish, and then I learned about copal, and then I learned all of these things about tree resin, and I don't know, some of y'all know how I am. So, but it has given me this space to stay actually curious about what is it that's flowing through us beyond but also inside the circumstances that shape us, you know? And the intimacy that I've been able to find in this imaginative, speculative, well-researched writing about my own ancestors is an intimacy with them I never thought I could have. And in some cases, because some of my ancestors have been harmful to my other ancestors and practiced patterns of harm that we're still unlearning in my family, there has been this possibility of knowing that there's something there other than that for me to receive from them now. And that's miraculous to me. That's beyond my expectations, what I even would consider to be possible. And I think that we actually collectively, let me not say that. Yes, collectively, I was going to give an example that then I was going to say something shady about, so I'll choose a different example. You see, that's sometimes what we got to do. Or I'll just say that so many of our teachers, Octavia Butler is one of these teachers, right, who show us that there is a way that what we are facing right now in the present, as you said, learning about the violence of the present and the recent past, is giving all of us the opportunity to confront these legacies and lineages that are unhealed, actively avoided, and that generations have not taken accountability for. All of us. And it's like contemporary inclusivity, but this backwards inclusivity of like all of my ancestors, even the ones that I don't want to think about and don't identify with and don't feel excited to talk to you about, like how I feel excited to talk to you about my grandma Lydia, right? We actually have to do that. We actually have to love those parts of us that are terrifying, because we're seeing what happens when people don't do that. What kind of harm people can commit when they are running away from themselves. And there's only so much running away we can do, you know? There is a direct relationship between our harm to the very earth that is the condition of our living, and that disidentification with what we are made of in terms of our histories and our lineages. And I want to also help with that, you know, and it's a very rigorous thing, but I do feel that as I actually make space for myself to wonder about what I'm made of, to be curious about it, to forgive myself, to grieve all the versions of myself that didn't make it here, it does actually increase my capacity to wonder about the people around me, to believe in and have energy for possibilities for the people who I'm alive with on the planet at the same time, to be other than what the story that we're relating to each other through has said we are. So thank you for that question. Come ask me the other question at the table. Okay. I don't know, because I'm sorry, if I'm not the boss, I'm just, but I still want to talk to you. I'm just letting you know that.
Let's give Alexis an amazing round of applause. Thank you so much. So now Alexis will be available over here at the book signing, so we can make our way over there.